You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, where we are showcasing the coolest brands and gifts, along with featuring movers and makers. I'm your host, Lenore, and on a previous episode, we had Connie Inukai. She showed us her tip and split, but today we are back with her because she's going to tell us all about her third act. This is how she developed a service to help people write their life story in pictures and in captions called Write Your Selfie. Connie Inukai, welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Lenore.
So today we're going to talk about all of the Write Your Selfie. So what is Write Your Selfie, and why should we leave that on and leave that for the next generations as our legacy?
Okay, so I decided to write my selfie, which is a book of my life story. And the reason I decided to write it is because, we're stuck at home in COVID, with COVID, almost over now, but we're stuck at home, and why not do something positive? So, because I'm in the high risk category and I'm literally scared to death to go out. I just go to the grocery store with my mask. So I decided to make a fun project for myself, because not only do we have time on our hands, but we want to connect with family. So I was connecting with my children and my grandchildren and my siblings over Zoom. And so I decided, why not, include a family history to pass down. So this is actually my book. And this is a picture of me when I was a little bit younger, I guess about 2 years old. So I put together this book, and it's mostly pictures. And why is it a good thing to do? Well, we're not gonna live forever, but as long as people can read about us, we're always going to be alive. And I decided also, because I talked to a lot of people who are doing this project with me, and maybe they just lost a parent or a grandparent, and they said, my gosh, I wish they had written down their memories so I would know more about my ancestry. So my children and my grandchildren and future generations are going to know all about my ancestry because I'm telling it to them. I'm also sharing little lessons that I want them to learn, because I have 5 grandchildren and I share stories with them all the time. So that's what it is. It's actually, why should people do it? Well, I can't think of a better thing to do for your parents, like for Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or for their birthday, to get to write with them, to write their life story, because they would be so happy to have this. And actually they can do it by themselves. They don't need me. But maybe they just want the impetus and the coaching and to be accountable to somebody. So I'm helping them.
Is there anything that you learned about yourself or your family history while writing your own Write Your Selfie book?
Oh, yeah. I learned, the main thing I learned, my mother never even told me this. I learned it from my cousin. My mother's parents, Grandma Ella and Grandpa Arthur. Grandma Ella and Grandpa Arthur immigrated to the United States from Poland in 1912. And I found that in Ancestry.com. But they had to cancel their trip because my grandma had morning sickness. And the trip that they canceled was on the Titanic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had no idea. My mother never ever told me that. I learned about it from my cousin after my mother was dead. So I would have never known it. So I learned a few other things about it when I was looking up my ancestry, and I included all that. So my grandkids will know about it. And actually, my grandson Julian is 8 years old, and he's fascinated with the Titanic. And he was watching all of these documentaries about the Titanic. And when I found that out, I said, guess what? My grandparents were supposed to be on the Titanic. So he was so impressed. So I tried to share with them some of our history.
So were your grandparents like, okay, so was your grandma, was she having morning sickness because she was pregnant with like your mom? Or
No.
was it one of the other aunts or uncles in your family?
She was pregnant with her. She had a son who was older, and that son was the father of my cousin. So he knew about it. My
That's
cousin
why.
Teddy knew about it. Yeah, but my mother was the second born.
That's really cool. That's a really good fun fact to bring up like on Christmas when you're just
Right.
like around the table, just, chatty. It's like, hey guys, did you know, like, we wouldn't be here if grandma, grandpa, or great grandma and grandpa like didn't have morning sickness.
So see, my cousin knew about it because it was his dad who she was pregnant with. So my mother just never even bothered to tell us, but she told me a lot about. There were a lot of other things I found out about my mother through doing my research, but some of it I knew. For example, my mother was the first female law student at the University of Minnesota, and two of her professors were actually just later justices of the Supreme Court. And so when my grandson was studying about the Supreme Court, when they had a new nominee, I told him, guess what? Your great grandma was a lawyer, and she, her teachers were on the Supreme Court. So, I get to share those things with my grandkids. And if I'm gone, they still have the book.
So if somebody listening right now wants to start this process and write their own selfie for a family member, how does it work? How do we get started with you?
Well, to get started with me, I have a website that's called writeyourselfie.com. By the way, the reason I call it Write Your Selfie is because when you younger people always take selfies, but older people don't really take selfies. So I want to get us in the groove with the younger people. So this is Write Your Selfie because it's mostly pictures with some captions. And so how do they do it? They can sign up on writeyourselfie.com, and I will walk them through the whole process. And I actually made the course in 6 easy lessons. And so if they do that, they can actually write their own book in 1 month, which is great. If you want to start doing it like at the beginning of the year, I think it's too late to get it for Christmas, but you can start on it, but you can do it for any Christmas, any birthday. What a great gift to give. And I walked them through the process of 6 easy steps.
How did you come up with the 6 steps for this process?
Well, I'll tell you how I did it. I used to be a writing teacher, so I'm really good at documenting what I'm doing. But I also wrote my book. And by writing it, I figured out what steps I did that were important. So I just put them together for other people to follow me.
So you said if we started right now, we can do it in about a month. How long did it actually take you to finish writing your selfie?
It took me 2 months because I was also exploring different ways to write it and different platforms to write it on and all kinds of different, what are the best ways to do it. So it actually took me 2 months. But also, I have 2 young grandchildren who live with me. So that's a little bit of a distraction, but they always come first. But it took me about 2 months. But you can actually do it in 1 month. But you don't have to. There's no time limit.
I think it's great because I think I must have been like 7 or 8 years old. My mom tried getting us one of those family tree books, and honestly, the truth is, Connie, I never finished it. So my grandma passed away and I didn't have any of that other information. And then I really wanted my grandma's sister to get on it. And I'm like, hey, Aunt Rita, I need some help over here. And unfortunately, she passed away before I was able to finish that either. And that was just words. But with your Write Your Selfie, it's great because right now, like I have thousands of photos on my phone. I got thousands of photos on Facebook, thousands of photos on an external hard drive that I'm probably never going to open again in my entire life. So at least this way, the pictures are actually there for you in this book to be able to pass on the highlights of your life and your legacy.
Exactly. Well, you also get to choose the best ones. You know, you go through them and figure out which one is best. And then you write a nice caption for it. And unlike you, I was born way before the smartphone. So most of my pictures on my smartphone are recent, recent, maybe the last 10 years. But I have tons of photo albums. Do you have any photo albums?
Yeah, I do. So in my bedroom at home, there's this one drawer that has a ton of photos. And obviously, like, my mom started it because it's like Lenore's first birthday, Lenore's communion, like all those other things. So I think in the last 10 years, I haven't really printed out many pictures. I printed them out when I didn't have smartphones in like elementary school and in middle school. And I'd be literally taking my big bulky camera around with me, just snapping pictures. And then I'd have no choice but to have to develop them or go to the pharmacy and get the disposable ones, because those are my favorite too, because you take the picture and you have to develop it and you actually have it tangible in your hands.
Right. So in my course, I teach people how to convert the pictures from the photo albums or just the hard copies into, to scan it and put it on their phone.
Wonderful.
So that it can also be put into the book that they're going to write. So you're at an age where most of your ancestry pictures are hard copy. So I would say half and half, because I have children who are probably older than you. And so I have some pictures of them and some actual pictures from photo albums, like Matt's first birthday, I have those before the camera came around. So this is just a really nice project to gather all your pictures, and you can probably do it with one of your siblings, and make a book together.
Oh, let's be real. I got two brothers, Connie. This girl's the one that's going to end up doing it, like not them. I would ask them for help, but they're going to be like, Lenore, this is your job. And I'm like, okay, guys, I get it. I'm going to help, but you need to help me too.
Right. Well, I gave it to them. I have one sister and four brothers.
Wow, that's a lot.
So they all have a copy of my book.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a good idea to give it to them too, because it's their history as well.
Well, I actually have not a lot. I have pictures of them growing up with me, but I don't have their children in it or their grandchildren. That's dedicated to my family because it's my book. But I have growing up pictures of all of my siblings and my parents.
You know what's one thing that if I'm able to like get all this done and write my own selfie, the one thing that I would love to just be able to upload, and maybe I'll look at your course how to scan like pictures and stuff, is my mom actually got the actual document of her grandparents coming in from Ellis Island, and it shows how like they changed their last name to the last name that they have now, and how many dollars they had and which teeth were rotten and things like that. So that's something I would love to, because she has that framed right now in like her home. So that's something I would love to incorporate into my own write your own selfie in there to pass that along, because you're not going to really get those copies as time goes on, and who knows, like what if Ellis Island's going to even continuously have all those records like from the early 1900s.
Right. You know what's very interesting? One of my friends is writing her book now, and her last name is Blank, Blank. Her name is Jackie Blank. And I said, that's a very interesting story. I said, you ought to find out, because probably when your grandparents immigrated, they probably said their name and nobody could understand them, and they said, just leave it blank.
You never know. That could possibly be the reason.
I think that would be a really, really nice story. I also have a story about my name. And, so I passed this on to my grandkids because my siblings know about it. there are 6 of us, and my sister was the oldest, and her name is Sharon, and she was named after my grandfather. And so you're supposed to name, in the Jewish religion, I'm Jewish, you're supposed to name your children after somebody who's deceased. So my mother named my sister Sharon, and the second one, which was me, she said to my dad, "You get to name her." So my dad chose the name Francis. And my mom said the next day, "How did you get that name?" And he said, "It was my old girlfriend." So the nurse was standing there, and on her name tag it said Connie. So I was named after the nurse. Now, isn't that a great story?
Yeah, maybe I have an Aunt Frances, so it made me laugh a little bit too.
Well, I found that out, before my mom died. We all laugh about that because I have a birth certificate that says Francis and it's crossed out and it says Connie. My whole book has things to tell about around the table, and everybody has a story. You just have to think a little bit, find a picture and think about a story that goes along with that.
That's so true. So if you want to start your own journey in your own book, you can head to writeyourselfie.com. You can check them out on Facebook at Write Your Selfie. And obviously you can check out Connie too on Instagram at Grandmapreneur Inventor, on Twitter at Grandmapreneur, and you can check her out on her website, grandmapreneurinventor.com. Connie Inukai, thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Thank you very much, Lenore. You're great. Okay. I love your show.
Oh, thanks so much. I love you too. So that is officially a wrap on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast. I'm your host, Lenore. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. More at brandambassadorselect.com, and we will see you next time.